So Steve, in your book, The Hidden Tools of Comedy, I believe you have a chapter at the end on how do you actually land a job as a writer.
Right.
And there's something to the effect of be brilliant and let everybody know about it. How do you do that without becoming Bill Murray?
Well, okay. First
Groundhog
off, people ask how do you sell a screenplay, and the first part of that is be brilliant. Write a brilliant screenplay. Get your craft to the point where it's so good, people can't deny it. There's a small corollary to that, which is in comedy, it's great to have a great comic premise, the lie that tells the truth. If you have a great premise, something that's so delicious that makes other people want to see that movie, have the movie start to happen in their own imagination, that's a great selling tool. That's basically the story of Groundhog Day, where the original script, not as funny as what you end up with in the final film. The structure is all different. The character is very different. In the original draft, the character Phil is just a nice guy. He's got no lesson to learn. He's just kind of stuck for 70 pages in this terrible time warp, and then he gets out of it. And so there's no, you don't feel the same cathartic sense of satisfaction as you do in the in the final revised draft. But the film had such a great premise, a premise that hadn't been overdeveloped, that it just made Harold Ramis want to buy it immediately. So if you have a great premise, a premise that no one else has thought of, or basically a premise that you have lifted from an earlier, and by earlier I mean way earlier, 1920s, 1930s film that hasn't been explored in a long time, that you can put your own twist on, your own take on, that's a great selling tool. But then, having done that, you need to make it brilliant. How do you make it brilliant? You make it brilliant by exposing it first to other people. Like we talked about, at another point, you want to hear your stuff read out loud. You want other people to hear your stuff read out loud, and you want to be open to that experience. By being open to the experience, what that means is don't have a Q&A afterwards. Give your friends wine and cheese, and have them. All you want to know is what parts did you like, what parts were you not that interested in. That's all you want to know. Neil Gaiman once said that 95% of the comments you get on a work of art is accurate. 95% of the solutions you're given are inaccurate. So you don't want to hear why don't you make them all, pygmies from Borneo? No, you don't want to hear that. What you do want to hear is, I love that part. This part, if that means that a human being went, at a certain part, you got to take that into account. Is it true? Is it not true? What is meh in that? Is there a fix to it? So you want to get your script as good as you possibly can get it. And there's no substitute for hearing it read out loud. Before they made Night at the Opera, the Marx Brothers didn't just go onto the set and be brilliantly funny. They toured those set pieces, like the stateroom scene, up and down the West Coast in vaudeville, all summer long. So they knew absolutely, based upon human beings' reactions, what was playing. And so when they shot it, when they went to shoot it, they knew exactly what was funny and what wasn't funny. Shooting it without an audience. Once you've done that, you then want to let people know about it. And how do you let people know about it? One way is you don't need to become Bill Murray, but you do need to lose all shame. And shame is, I used to go to high school with that person, but I haven't talked to them in 20 years. Oh, I can't just call them up. And why not? Why not just call them up? Because there's an important thing. This isn't as true in New York, but in Los Angeles is high school with money. What does that mean? That means that if you're a great transfer student, but no one knows you, you're not getting invited to the party. No matter how wonderful you are, no one knows you. So in Los Angeles, face-to-face is so much more valuable than some abstract, brilliant script. First, you need to let people know about it. Just a case in point, I was doing a project for HBO several years ago, and these comics from Montreal had written a script. I thought they gave it to me. I thought it was very funny. A Disco Inferno about kind of a spoof of old disaster films, and it centered around a disco that somebody had inadvertently placed or evilly placed, because the evil developer placed in what they thought was a dormant volcano. So Disco Inferno. They said, could you help us? So I said, well, I know some people, so I sent it around to some people. Didn't get much of a response. Then I met a guy at a party, a dinner party. I sat next to him for about 2 hours. We talked, made him laugh, he made me laugh. I sent him the script. He was working as an executive at some company. The script got optioned by these people. What's the difference? The only difference was he knew me. He met me. I was a nice guy. I was an okay guy. So he read the script knowing that, as opposed to just reading the script on its own merits, whether you thought it was funny or not funny. So that taught me the power of face-to-face relationship. Now, how can you create face-to-face relationship? One way is to not be shy or shamed. Make a list of everybody who you've ever met or might have met or possibly met or stood behind in Starbucks waiting for a coffee. Everybody, and studiously, methodically get in touch with all of them. What do you have to lose? Because here's the thought. If somebody came to you and said, I need your help, what would you do? You would say, okay, if I can help you, sure. Why are those people different? They're human beings too. People want to help other people. Now, there will be people who are assholes. Well, they're not going to help you because they're assholes. I once asked somebody, when I first came to Los Angeles, I was looking to get settled somewhere, I asked somebody, could we get together? I'd love to pick your brain. And there was this long pause on the phone. And she said, I don't like my brain being picked. And then there was about a minute of awkward conversation, and I hung up, and it was like, well, fuck you, Okay, so she wasn't going to give me any help. But the other part of the story was, it turned out that a guy who I went to college with was a top executive at HBO. And so I emailed him. I think this is actually before emails. I called him, left a message, waited 3 days, called again. Without saying, I've already called once, just called again. Because busy guy, one of the top executives at HBO, called again. I must have called 13 times just to sit down with the guy. And by the 13th time, his secretary said, he really wants to talk to you. Okay. One of the things that taught me was, in New York, if you call somebody and they don't return the phone call, that says something. But here in Los Angeles, if you call somebody and they don't return it, it's because they have 75 other phone calls that they haven't gotten to. There are 200 emails, and there's only so much time, and you're not on the top of their list. But rather than saying, oh, God damn them, I just called again. And called again. I didn't call every day. I didn't call 5 times a day. I had a calendar, and I said, enough time is gone. I just left a message. I wasn't asking for a loan. I was just leaving a message. Finally, we set up a meeting. And I go in there and I say, Chris, do you remember me? We went to college together. And he said, you forgot. We went to high school too. It turned out I had gone to Stuyvesant High School with him, and I had completely forgotten that. And because he knew me, and he had borrowed, French fries from my plate, in the cafeteria at Hofstra University, and this is my good friend. This is my good friend Panther. He said, well, what do you got for me? And I told him one of my ideas. He said, why don't you get together with this guy Dave down the hall? And that started me in Los Angeles. And none of that would have happened if I had simply given up on the first try or second try.
So what are writers shameful about?
Everybody's shameful. Shameful that you're going to be rejected, shameful that nobody's returned your phone call, shamed that you might call somebody and they don't remember you. But my feeling is that if you called me and said, Steve, can you help me out? Why wouldn't I say yes? I like being a good person. I like helping people out. Most people are like me.
So how do writers get out of that self-effacing, introverted mindset? Seems like a lot of them have, or maybe that's just a myth.
No, it's hard. You get, in the entertainment field, there's a lot of rejection, and the only way out of it is to take a deep breath and realize that the person you're talking to is just another human being, and if they don't respond to you, I mean, I'm not talking about buy your project. I'm talking about just agree to meet. If they don't agree, if they don't want to meet with you, well, that says something more about them than it does about you. But more people have gotten deals or made sales based upon knowing somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. And if you don't get it out there and say, could you show or could you help me? Well, no one's a mind reader. No one's going to say, I can feel that Karen wants help. We're not the X-Men. All you can do is ask. Sometimes, the answer is no, but all you can do is ask. And then there are places that are actively looking. Nickelodeon, Writers on the Verge, the big break contest. I mean, there's all these places where if your stuff is brilliant. Now, if your stuff isn't brilliant, it's not gonna, you can't pretend to yourself it's brilliant and blame other people for not buying it.
Sure.
But if your stuff is brilliant, then there's avenues that you can explore to get it out there, or do it yourself.